Let's see what happens. Technology. Whew. Shouldn't have ran. Now I'm sweating. Oh, yeah. I whiskey, she wines. We should give Bob a shout out.
There we go. There we go. Welcome to Fumblegate on YouTube.
Ooh.
Our new home.
Technology.
That's right. And we definitely encourage all of you to get involved in the chat. That will be readily available throughout the show here today. I'm Jason Grefer. This is former Cincinnati Bengal Adam Kieft. Our Twitter handles are at the bottom of your screens, so you know exactly where to get in touch with us on Twitter. And we're also on Facebook, facebook.com/Fumblegate. Well, we're back from our hiatus. As I talked about in our last video, we had a pretty important reason to take a hiatus last year for the Super Bowl. This season, it was just kind of things settled down, so we just kind of took a little bit of a break. You had to get the volume.
Still
there.
an idiot. Still a big dumb idiot.
Still working
folks.
on the technology.
Yeah.
So we're back this year and ready to go. And throughout today in this show, we're going to have a lot of things to look forward to for tonight's first round. We do want to let you know we will be live here tomorrow morning on Fumblegate on YouTube to recap the first round and also to get you set for rounds 2 and 3 and then also 4 through 7 on Saturday. So you want to be here once again tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And we'll recap the first round with you. So, again, we got a lot to get to today. As we go forward through the show, we'll each give you a mock top 10. We've each done a mock top 10 this year. Last year, we kind of alternated picks between us. This year, we decided to each do our own top 10. So we'll have that for you as well. Guys that are under the radar picks that you're going to want to look for, biggest risks, biggest reward, those types of things as we go forward. But first, before we get there, we want to get through some of the things that happened during our hiatus. And a lot of things changing, guys changing teams, players staying with teams for a boatload more money and what have you. So with that, wanted to get into kind of what we thought was the biggest move in the offseason. Adam, there's one that kind of sticks out like a sore thumb.
Well, there's a singular one, but I want to go a little bit bigger. I'm going to say the entire Cincinnati or Cleveland Browns roster. Mm-hmm. Their roster and the changes that were made, John Dorsey has come in and just flipped the script on the roster up there in Cleveland. And if you look at it, OBJ obviously is the big one that everybody talks about. Obviously, huge acquisition for them, and I think relatively cheap. They got him for a pretty good price. But you look at their roster, and I wrote this down just because the change in the roster from when John Dorsey showed up to now. At quarterback, when John Dorsey showed up, they had 3: Cody Kessler, Brock Osweiler, and Kevin Hogan. There's a name. Unbelievable. Running back, Isaiah Crowell and Duke Johnson. Their wide receivers, good wide receiving core they had in 2017. Corey Coleman.
Gone.
Kenny Britt. Rashard Higgins and Luis Ricardo. Those were their receivers. Luis Ricardo, he's so irrelevant that there's not even a link to his actual page when you look it up because he's so irrelevant. But he was the number 4 receiver on that roster. Their tight ends, again, 2 guys you've never even heard of. Gary Barnidge and Randall Telfer.
He had like one decent year.
Yeah, one decent season.
One decent season.
Which is what you can be known for up in Cleveland. You can get your face on the Madden cover for one decent season up in Cleveland.
Peyton Hillis.
He's got a Madden cover,
That's
which is more than any of us have. But you look at the roster today: Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and Duke Johnson. And I want to say this real quick: Kareem Hunt could be the most underrated acquisition of this group. Unfortunately, with his legal troubles, he's going to sit out half the season. But as a football player, getting him for next to nothing could pay huge dividends for you as a franchise. And you know, I'm nothing apart from the legal troubles with the hitting of a woman and whatever and what may have actually happened. that's all taken care of now in the league. As we know, Roger Goodell likes to suspend people for arbitrary things, and sometimes it's more than others, and it doesn't really matter who you are. And some people get 2 games, and some people get 8 games, and he just kind of makes it up as he goes. I think he's got a dartboard in his office that's just got numbers on them, and he just throws a dart, and it's 7. Okay, you get 7 games.
You're going to get suspended from YouTube. You keep this up.
I know. Roger Goodell might come and get me. But anyway, that one could be severely underrated acquisition for them. Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Antonio Callaway, and Rashard Higgins, who's the one lone holdover from 2017. And then their tight ends now, David Njoku and Demetrius Harris. Their roster has completely changed. They might have the best receiving core in the AFC. Their running back stable looks solid right now.
And he also drafted Myles Garrett.
Yeah,
who's a stud.
We won't even pretend like their defense isn't something to be reckoned with now.
And he drafted Denzel Ward last season, who turned out to be a stud.
Yeah, like they have drafted well. They've completely flipped this roster, and they were truly 1 or 2 games away from making the playoffs this last season, and could have easily made the playoffs, as we've mentioned many times before. Could have been 4-0 through their first 4 games before Hugh gets fired, but. It's really going to be up to Freddie Kitchens and what he can do with that offense, and obviously their defense is going to be really good too. But if they can score points, they're I think right now, it's hard to say they're not the favorite in the AFC North. It's really hard to say they're not.
They're on paper, they're the favorites in the AFC North,
and they look good, and
they
it's their whole offseason has been unbelievable. Obviously, Odell Beckham is the big one. But just in general, the turnover on that roster between 2017 and now, what John Dorsey has done, and we saw what he did in Kansas City.
Yep.
And when they went out to go,
he drafted Kareem Hunt in Kansas City.
Yeah, so and they went out to go get Pat Mahomes. They made the trade to get Pat Mahomes, which turns out great decision there. NFL MVP, turns out that was a decent decision. But he's doing the same thing up in Cleveland, and it's this season, look for them to be in the playoffs, and in 2 or 3 more seasons, who knows where they could be. Like Cleveland's becoming a force, that's for sure.
It's probably the first time in 30 years that they've been the favorites in their division. Let's going back to the AFC Central days. Look it up, kids. AFC Central back then. The other big move, obviously, was Antonio Brown going to Oakland. That, to me, anyway, does not really stand out as the biggest acquisition because Oakland's still going to stink.
No, Oakland is Oaklanding up everything. We saw what they did last season with Khalil Mack, getting rid of Khalil Mack for turning him into the defensive MVP up in Chicago.
Yeah,
and you're still paying a head coach $10 million a year. Now, I heard something this week that John Gruden said if they stink that he'll give the money back, which is a lie. But they still paid a guy who had 10 years out of coaching to be the highest paid NFL coach of all time. Well, and he can't manage anything, apparently. I don't know what they're doing over there in Oakland.
They hired Mike Mayock as their general manager, and Mike Mayock was a terrific analyst for the NFL Network.
Yeah.
So you kind of get the connection there. But then you have a situation where Gruden comes out publicly and says, I tell you what, man, Mike Mayock better not screw this up. And then last week, it's leaked out that the Raiders sent their entire scouting staff home for the week of the draft because they're apparently petrified somebody's going to leak out their plans. So you don't have your scouting staff in the building for the week leading up to the draft. So the Raiders are going to be the Raiders. Beckham is obviously the big one out there. But I'm going to stay in the AFC North for another name that didn't get as much attention. Again, obviously the question, the biggest acquisition, it's Odell Beckham. But another thing to keep an eye on, it was a very sneaky signing, and I think a very good one, was the Baltimore Ravens signing Mark Ingram to a 3-year, $15 million contract. And the reason being there, you're switching now to a whole new style of play offensively with Lamar Jackson. And we saw his struggles to throw the ball last season when he eventually supplanted #NotElite Joe Flacco. So and he's still a work in progress and is going to be. And you need somebody that is steady Eddie in the backfield that is going to give you the running game, that can catch the ball out of the backfield. He had to be adept at that to survive in New Orleans for as long as he did, and is also strong enough to he can give you that added blocking element in the backfield to give Lamar Jackson more time for when he needs to look for a second option when the first one's not open, for when he needs to scramble because that's what he's going to do early in his career.
Well, that's what he has to do.
When your first option isn't open, you tuck it. You want to tuck it and run. That happens to a lot of guys. Lamar Jackson, we saw last season. He was no different in that.
That's what he made his living on in college.
Yes.
I mean, he made his living on using his legs.
It was
and NFL, he did a pretty good job at it so far. Now, it's going to catch up with him eventually. But while teams are still trying to figure you out defensively, he's going to have those opportunities. And so a good back in the backfield to help block for you when you take off is always a good thing.
Well, and while he's still learning that, you need a bell cow to lean on. And Ingram's always been a guy in New Orleans who, with the way they run things offensively, even before Alvin Kamara showed up there, he's not running the ball 20, 25, 30 times a game. He still has life left in his legs, even though he's at 29 or 30 years old, whatever the case may be. He still has energy in his legs to be able to go to where you can hand it off to him early in the season if you need to give him 25 carries in a game because Lamar Jackson just doesn't have it or you're still trying to slowly bring him along. He's a guy that can handle that. He's a guy, again, first option's not open down the field. Where's my check down? Yeah. Mark Ingram can catch the ball as well as any running back in the league. So that's a kind of an under-the-radar signing, and Baltimore's been very good at that for a number of years. Obviously, the splashy signing at the time was Earl Thomas and the huge contract he got. But to sign Ingram at the same time, I think it was huge for the Ravens to get him some support, Lamar Jackson, so that they can keep pace with the Cleveland Browns in the AFC North.
It's funny that we're talking about keeping pace with the Cleveland Browns, but I mean, it's funny because you look at the Steelers basically got rid of their roster. That Le'Veon Bell is obviously gone, and he wasn't coming back anyway, but he's obviously gone. They traded away Antonio Brown for peanuts, I might mention, the 3rd and 5th round pick for Antonio Brown. If
nice job, Gruden.
If Oakland could manage it, that would be a steal.
That was a fleece and a half on paper.
But I don't know if they're going to be able to manage it because we all know what Oakland does. They end up trading away their talent before they get too big for them. But,
that's right.
We'll see if they can trade away Antonio Brown's contract when they screw him up. But anyway, it's funny that we're talking about chasing Cleveland Browns, but then you look at the Cincinnati Bengals and they didn't do anything this offseason.
Signed B.W. Webb.
Well, they
gave Bobby Hart $21 million for 3 years.
Yeah, they gave the 75th worst tackle in the NFL $21 million, which was a terrible idea. But anyways, the Browns made the moves and nobody else did. Now, like you said, Baltimore did make some moves, and they're trying to surround Lamar Jackson with players who are going to make him better, give him the best chance to succeed. Because really now they moved on because the only other quarterback currently on their roster is BG3. Griffin, yeah.
RG3,
BG3. Blake Griffin, Bob Griffin, whatever.
The third. How about this year? Maybe also too. Maybe Baltimore draft a wide receiver.
Yeah, go out and get somebody who can stretch the field.
That was always our biggest one of our biggest complaints with hashtag Not Elite Joe Flacco. Is that John Harbaugh never made an attempt to get him a weapon?
No, they didn't.
Throw the ball to.
Like, Joe Flacco wasn't great, but
Anquan Bolden, when he was over the hill, I mean, he was fine for a few years there.
Anquan Bolden did well for them, but he was the only one they really went out, the big name receiver that they went out to go get. That's it.
Michael Crabtree?
Yeah, draft somebody. Go out and get some weapons, but, we no longer have hashtag Not Elite Joe Flacco.
No, Elway's going to ruin him.
That's
right. No. We forgot. Flacco at 34 is just entering his prime in Denver.
Yeah. John, is it time for John Elway to step away yet?
When is the Bolin? We'll talk about that as sure as we go on. When is the Bolin family going to figure it out that he does not have the first damn clue as to what he's doing?
No.
He drafted Von Miller.
Yeah.
And signed Peyton Manning.
That was it.
What has he done?
That was it. What else has he got one Super Bowl out of it, which, some franchise don't have. But,
right.
It's similar to the Magic Johnson deal out in L.A. Like, Magic Johnson's huge for your franchise, but he's got to go.
Did you see the new story that came out? Supposedly, one of the reasons he resigned is because he was accidentally CC'd on internal emails that were saying how bad of an executive he was.
Yeah, well. It's probably true.
All right,
but he got LeBron. So
back to the offseason here. In your mind, the most important offseason contract that we saw, whether it be a free agent moving on or an extension.
To me, this is a no-brainer. It's Big Dick Nick. It's got to be. Nick Foles. It has to be Nick Foles down in Jacksonville. Nick Foles, Super Bowl MVP. He's going down to Jacksonville. Gets a big money contract, 4 years, $88 million, worth up to $102 million. Big contract for this guy. I love it. I love his teammates too. They posted a picture of a giant jockstrap and said, "Hey Nick, did you forget this?" Like everybody played into it. It was great. But you look at Jacksonville and their offense and what they did with Blake Bortles, who by the way threw 13 touchdowns to 11 interceptions.
Good job, Tom Coughlin.
Yeah, but only sacked 37 times. I was looking at their team stats.
That's it.
Oh, but realistically,
that's middle of the pack.
Middle of the pack. Like it's not like he's under a huge amount of pressure.
No, he just stinks.
He just stinks. And now you bring in a quarterback who is going to hopefully change these numbers. Now, you look at Jacksonville as an offense last year, 31st in the league in points, 15.3 points per game, 27th in yards, 302. Passing yards, they were 26th. Rushing yards, they were 19th. Their offense was terrible.
Well, part of it too is Leonard Fournette was hurt a lot. That hurt things. I'm not excusing for the fact that Blake Bortles sucks.
No, Blake Bortles
and that Tom Coughlin
terrible.
was an idiot for giving him $20 million. That was the same thing as the Cardinals pissing away $20 million on Sam Bradford.
Oh, so dumb.
It doesn't excuse it. I'm saying that definitely factored in.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't change much. But you look at overall their stats. Their defense only gave up 34 touchdowns the entire season. Their offense scored 25. They led time of possession. Their defense actually gave them more turnovers.
Well, and we saw as the season went along, their defense quit.
Their defense quit because there was no offense to support them.
Like, they knew they had no shot. Yeah.
You look at what they did offensively. Like,
so you think Big Dick Nick can handle this move better than when he moved to the Rams? When he left Philadelphia the first time.
As long as you're going to play to his strengths, which I think Jacksonville will do, because their strengths for their previous quarterback were so low. There were so few strengths for Blake Bortles that I think it's easier to design an offense around a guy who's Nick Foles is fairly one-dimensional quarterback. Like you cannot. We saw it in Philly. Like their offense changed when Nick Foles came in. They simplified it for him, but. He was super successful at doing that. So give Nick Foles a simplified offense, protect him well, give him a healthy Leonard Fournette in the backfield, and you're going to have more success than you have with Blake Bortles. You have to. I mean, it's almost statistically impossible for you not to have more success. Like you look at the number of games they lost where they held teams to under 20 points, which in the NFL
should be an automatic win.
Should be an automatic win for you. Like they hold Houston to 20 points, they score 3. They hold Washington to 16. They scored 13. Let's not forget the stinker. They go in and shut out Indianapolis, who's a playoff team, and their offense scores 6 points. Or the 9-6 stinker they got early in the season. They lose to Tennessee 9-6 because their offense can't score a single touchdown.
That was a week after beating New England, and everybody
you go in and beat New England like, oh, you're on a roll. You're going to go in and beat Tennessee, who's terrible. You hold Tennessee to 9 points, and your offense scores 6. Blake Bortles threw for 155 yards.
Would it be fair to say that Blake Bortles, you couldn't even qualify that he has strengths? They're just his weakest weaknesses.
Yeah, his less weak weaknesses. Like that's really all he has. But yeah, I think Jacksonville went out. They made a great move. You get a Super Bowl MVP. You get a guy who knows how to win. He's been around the NFL, like you mentioned. He's been in places where he's failed, and I think that he's at the maturity level where he knows what it takes to win, and he knows what it takes to be successful. Obviously, with a Super Bowl win under his belt, I think that is really going to pay dividends for them down in Jacksonville, because if you look at the roster and obviously you look at their defense is phenomenal. They have so many good players on that defense, and Leonard Fournette is assumedly going to be healthy. And you design your offense for Nick Foles to be successful, who is a infinitely greater talent than Blake Bortles.
Huge upgrade,
just talent wise. He's just a huge upgrade. So you go out and you get. Design the offense for him, see what they do in the draft. It's going to be interesting to see if they draft some offensive weapons or they try and just get a stronger and stronger defense, because you feel like the difference in Nick Foles and Blake Bortles is enough points that as long as you can hold opponents in 20, then the 20 range, you're going to have a shot.
Well, we'll talk about that as we go along here, because we're each going to have our mock top 10, and Jacksonville's in the top 10 this year. They're picking 7, so we'll see. Stay tuned in. You'll find out who each of us have going to Jacksonville. As far as biggest offseason contract for me, and it just happened within the last 48 hours, The Pittsburgh Steelers extending Ben Roethlisberger for $85 million for 3 years. Ugh. So he's tied to Pittsburgh till he's 40 years old. And the reason being that I found this to be the most significant is because, to me, this is another sign that Pittsburgh is, and they're hitching Mike Tomlin's run to Ben Roethlisberger. And the fact that they clearly don't have a plan for the future after Roethlisberger, because why would you give him $85 million for 3 more years when he's already 37?
You're assuming he's playing out all 3 of those years. You have to. If you're giving him that much money, you're assuming he plays until he's 40 and he remains healthy.
To me, it shows that you have no plan for life after him, which is very weird for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're normally very forward-thinking.
Yeah, they have been in the past. They've always had.
It shows that you have no faith that Mike Tomlin can develop a quarterback, and we've seen that throughout Mike Tomlin's tenure. Drafted Landry Jones in the 4th round in 2013. Where's Landry Jones?
Is he even on the roster? Is he on a roster?
Drafted Joshua Dobbs 2 years ago in the 4th round.
He's still there.
Drafted Mason Rudolph last year in the 3rd round.
He's still there. But they're not.
Are either one of those guys sniffing the field?
No, they're not supplanting Ben Roethlisberger at this point. And this year's really going to be interesting because I was talking with a buddy yesterday. Are the Steelers still in contention? Yeah, because they're the Steelers.
They're going to hang around.
They're going to hang around, and you know.
But
8-8's probably not winning this division this year.
That's where they're at right now.
That's where they're going to be. They're an 8-8 team right now, and it's going to take something to put them over the top. Their draft is going to be huge for them because they lost Antonio Brown. They lost Le'Veon Bell. Now Connor came in and did a really, really good job.
And so did Juju.
Juju did a really good job, but now let's take away Antonio Brown on the other side of the field from Juju. You no longer have 2 elite wide receivers. Mm-hmm. Juju did develop into an elite wide receiver. There's no question. But take away an elite wide receiver on the other side of the field, and let's see how effective you really are.
What do you have on the defensive side of the ball? You have an aging Joe Hayden at corner.
Their defense has been aging for years, and we've talked about that in the past too. Like their defense just continues to get older, and they don't really upgrade. As far as bringing their age level of their talent
they've
back
missed
down.
On some defensive draft picks.
Yeah, they just haven't done a very good job.
Yeah,
and you know, you hate to say it, but the loss of like a Ryan Shazier is huge for them.
Yeah.
Who you know, credit to him, by the way. I don't know if you guys saw, he's doing box jumps again. He's never going to play football again, but his rehab and his healing process is actually pretty impressive.
He's getting closer to living a normal life.
Yeah, he's gonna have a chance to walk around without assistance and stuff like that.
That's good.
But even losing a guy like him who was a middle linebacker who you thought he was going to be your linebacker for the future.
Yep.
And now he will never play football again. They're not getting any younger. Their whole team isn't getting any younger. You look at, they just re-signed a quarterback who's going to play till he's 40. He has to. Now you gave him $80 million. He has to play till he's 40.
They have no plan for him.
No, they don't.
They're hanging on by a thread.
It's funny because Dobbs and Rudolph are really, really good college quarterbacks, and you feel like you could develop them because they are the pro style body. Like they look like NFL quarterbacks, and you could be developing them, and it doesn't look like that's their plan.
And Rudolph is, especially Mason Rudolph, he is a clone of Ben Roethlisberger.
Yes,
size-wise,
big quarterback,
big arm. But the thing with Rudolph is he was a product of a system at Oklahoma State with the mullet, where it's the air raid offense, and that to this point, that has not translated that part of the air raid to the NFL.
No, it doesn't, and it hasn't. Like you look at the number of quarterbacks who throw for 5,000 yards in a season in college,
and the fact that you drafted Rudolph a year after drafting Dobbs, that tells you right there where they've already failed on the development of Joshua Dobbs.
Well, and it just shows you that their roster needed another quarterback. Like they don't trust Josh Dobbs.
Well, they don't have any faith in Mason Rudolph either. Otherwise, they would not have given Roethlisberger $85 million to play till he's 40 years old.
I think part of it too, though, is and you go back to the Antonio Brown thing, is when you talk about who runs the locker room. It's Ben Roethlisberger.
Oh, Ben runs that locker room.
Ben Roethlisberger runs that locker room, and above Mike Tomlin. Like he is more important than Mike Tomlin.
That's become even more apparent now with Brown gone and getting this massive extension.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve an extension. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. But, yes, to have Brown gone, to let Le'Veon Bell just not only sit at home last season, and now this year not even bother to try and tag him and then try and trade him.
But again,
Ben Roethlisberger runs that franchise.
Maybe there's some truth to the fact that Roethlisberger's kind of a dick. Like, he didn't go out and try to recruit Le'Veon Bell to come back. Like, is Le'Veon Bell an upgrade for your offense? Absolutely. Not saying that Connor didn't do a great job. Connor
was very good.
But why is Ben Roethlisberger, who apparently is leading your franchise, not going out and actively recruiting him? Why is he not saying like, "Hey, Le'Veon, come back"?
Well,
but the ownership has said Ben Roethlisberger obviously is our bell cow. We're going to hitch our wagon to him.
He is that franchise's LeBron James.
He is.
Runs the show.
He runs the show. His number's going to be in their rafters. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame in the long run. It's astonishing to me that you've really, really linked your success or lack thereof for the next 3 seasons to a guy who's going to be 40 years old at the end of that contract. I'm not saying he's not a good quarterback, because he is. Well, he's probably a top 15 quarterback in the NFL still. Mm-hmm. But you have, like you've mentioned, no succession plan. None. No. And you're getting older as a franchise. You just committed yourself to a 40-year-old quarterback in 3 seasons.
And the thing is,
and it's crazy for a team and a storied franchise like the Steelers to just kind of allow this to happen over the last 10 years of Ben Roethlisberger's career, just allowing him to run that franchise.
You already have scenarios across the league where Drew Brees is going to be playing into his 40s. Tom Brady's already playing into his 40s. It looks like Phillip Rivers is probably going to play in his 40s. Who knows about Eli Manning? So you kind of get where Pittsburgh's going with this because they're seeing other older quarterbacks around the league stick around, but
those quarterbacks are far, far more elite than Ben Roethlisberger.
Well, it's not necessarily that. Those other guys have not taken anywhere near the pounding that Ben Roethlisberger has, because they have been so reliant on Ben Roethlisberger just being flat out bigger than anyone that he can take the punishment, and eventually that's going to catch up to him to where he's going to go down and he's not going to get back up, and then all of a sudden Mike Tomlin gets that deer in the headlights look that we've seen multiple times, and he is completely lost, and then that franchise is screwed for years.
Like you've seen it, and I was talking the other day with somebody. The reason that Tom Brady can do it, Tom Brady doesn't get hit.
No.
Tom Brady gets sacked maybe 10 times a season.
Yep.
And they always seem to be like Tom Brady's smart enough to get his ass down. Like if somebody's coming free, Tom Brady's just going to take a knee. Like get out of the way.
How many times have you seen Roethlisberger get hit or get grabbed and he's trying to fight it?
He's trying to fight his way through it. He's getting, getting stood up and he's getting hit in the chest by the second defender. Tom Brady doesn't take hits like that ever.
No.
Drew Brees doesn't take hits like that. They protect Drew Brees, and if he's going to get hit, he gets his ass down.
Yep.
Like Phillip Rivers probably takes a little bit more of a pounding, but in general, those guys avoid contact.
Yep.
Ben Roethlisberger doesn't, and it's led to huge plays for him. But his body is not in the same shape as Tom Brady and Drew Brees at this point in their careers. Those guys are infinitely fresher and healthier than Ben Roethlisberger is.
All right,
it's a little confusing.
Let's head on now and start moving in towards the NFL draft. 8 head coaching changes in the offseason. 1/4 of the league has new head coaches. Talking about here which coach needs the biggest home run hire, and we'll quickly touch on this. I think it's your boy Matt LaFleur with the Green Bay Packers, and for the simple reason that Aaron Rodgers' window is closing. He's 35 years old. He's getting older. You got to strike now. Plus, Green Bay is the absolute smallest market in the league. Just 100,000 people live in Green Bay.
Yeah.
So because of that, you don't have the money to go out and get elite free agents. You can get a guy like Jimmy Graham who's on the downside of his career, so on and so forth. And
they've never really spent bunches of money in free agency for that reason.
And you wonder also if this is the year they commit to a quarterback early in one of their early picks, not necessarily first round, maybe second or third round, so they can get a succession plan going.
You look at the Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers situation.
Same type of thing. So I think it's big.
I think Aaron understands that that's coming.
Sure.
Like he's a smart enough guy. He's not the Ben Roethlisberger ego.
And he's another guy. He because he can move. He's taken a lot of hits too.
He has.
So
and they didn't protect him
I think
it's
your guy Matt LaFleur. He's got to hit this one because Green Bay has some holes to fill in that roster, and Aaron Rodgers is not getting any younger.
No, I think he's going to get a little bit more free time because Aaron Rodgers is still going to make plays. You still have a franchise quarterback under center. I think that he's got a little less pressure because Aaron Rodgers, and they're going to design an offense. Matt LaFleur is an offensive guy. That's what he's done his entire career, and he's built some really good offenses. He's a smart mind. But I think he's got a little less pressure than the guy I picked. I think Cliff Kingsbury has to figure out this draft, and particularly because what they're talking about in Arizona, because they're talking about the number 1 overall pick going quarterback after drafting a quarterback 10th overall last year. Cliff Kingsbury, I think, personally, worst hire this offseason, you look at him, he's a marginally successful college coach. Marginally successful. I believe he's like 3 games over 500 as a college coach. He got a no-interview job out in Southern California. He got that job without doing an interview. They gave him the job as the offensive coordinator. Turns around, Arizona comes in and hires him. And you look at this is the Sean McVay effect. In reality, this is the Sean McVay effect. Everyone is trying to capture lightning in a bottle because of what LA did with Sean McVay, going out getting a young, energetic head coach who's going to come in and flip your roster and change you into a Super Bowl contender like Sean McVay did. I think Cliff Kingsbury is the worst one to do it with because he doesn't have a history of success with what he's done. Now you look at what they're trying to do. If they go out and take a quarterback number 1 overall after taking a quarterback number 10 overall last season, and they aren't going to build a roster around that quarterback like they didn't build around Rosen last year, it's going to be a terrible, terrible season for them. And I don't think Cliff Kingsbury has a very long leash. Like, I don't think that this is an NBA situation where you suck 1 season, you get fired. He's got 3 years max. I think if they suck 2 years in a row, he's gone. Like, they have to build a roster with Cliff Kingsbury and the offense he's going to want to try and install. And the thing that's confusing to me, and we're going to talk about it here when we do our mock draft, I don't know that Kyler Murray is a quarterback that you can run what he ran in college in the NFL. I just don't think you can do it. Now, does the dude have a huge arm? Absolutely. Can he sling it 80 yards? Yes, absolutely. But so much of what he did in college was predicated on being able to use his legs. In the NFL, you can't do that as much. Lamar Jackson did it to a point, but eventually it's going to catch up with you. And Lamar Jackson, let's not forget, is almost a foot taller than Kyler Murray. Not really.
Lamar Jackson's not 5'10".
He's not 5'10". So I think Cliff Kingsbury, if they miss at number 1 overall, if they take Kyler Murray and Kyler Murray stinks after taking a quarterback last year at number 10, he's going to have a long season and it's not going to go well for him. I think because they own the number 1 pick, I think Cliff Kingsbury has the most pressure, particularly if you take another quarterback number 1 overall after taking 1/10 last year.
Well, for that reason, I think as we move along here, I think Arizona's a team that needs to trade out of the number 1 pick because they
have so many holes to fill.
Thank you. You're going to get David Johnson back, and that was a huge loss last season because he is a jack of all trades tailback.
100%.
That could do everything, and that's a huge loss. You have Larry Fitzgerald, who's going to be playing in his 17th season.
Who, by the way, future Hall of Famer and extremely effective for his age at wide receiver.
But what else do you have?
They don't. And again, David Johnson.
And there's reports now that your best overall player, Patrick Peterson, wants out, or maybe on the move out. Supposedly there was rumors that the Chiefs were talking to them before they acquired Frank Clark. But I think Arizona is a team that if you want to start turning it around fast, trade out of the number 1 pick because we've seen teams. We saw New Orleans last season give up a first rounder this year to move up to like the 15th spot to draft Marcus Davenport. So you have to figure, even with another team in the top 10, say the Oakland Raiders want to make a splash and move up 3 spots from 4 to 1, you're gonna want and you're gonna get a king's ransom for it, as you should. So
we mentioned this before we went on the air. If Oakland offers all 3 of their first round picks for the number 1 pick overall, and you got to bump back 3, take it. Like if that phone call gets made tonight, take it.
Kyler Murray is not going to change you overnight.
He's not elite talent. This is not a surefire.
What you're also not going to do, you're not going to recoup a first-round pick for Josh Rosen. It looks like you're not going to trade. You're not going to trade the number 1 pick within your division. San Francisco is not going to go from 2 to 1. No. Seattle doesn't have the picks to go up there. Obviously, the Rams are not going to go from 31 up to 1. Rumors are the Rams want to trade out of the first round.
Yeah, they don't need to. Like you look at their roster, they don't need to.
So because of that, you're not going to play Kyler Murray twice every year. So what's the harm then in evaluating what's out there and looking to move out if somebody comes at you with an offer? So for me, if I'm Arizona, I'm looking to get out.
But I don't think they are. And the rumor.
I don't think they're going to. I don't think they are either. But I think they should because that roster.
I agree.
That roster is clearly the worst in the league. They have so many holes to fill.
Yeah, and again, I just don't see giving up on the 10th overall pick this fast. I just don't see it. Like if Cliff Kingsbury's an offensive guru, You can't design an offense around a quarterback who was the 10th overall pick
Well, and
last
also,
year?
if Cliff Kingsbury wants to run some of his similar offense that he ran at Texas Tech, that was not predicated on a mobile quarterback. That was a pure pocket passer looking for his option out there, and that's what Josh Rosen is.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's just, you mentioned it too. If they indeed take Kyler Murray at number 1, I think if there's a lot of other teams on that better be on the phone inquiring on what it's going to take to get Josh Rosen, because I don't think Josh Rosen is a bad quarterback by any means. Again, you take away the biggest offensive weapon they had besides Larry Fitzgerald last season, and they struggled 100%. But if he doesn't have a guy to hand the ball to or a guy who can work out of the backfield, you're putting him at a disadvantage. So there's a lot of teams who better be on the phone who maybe don't need to draft a quarterback, but are looking for a quarterback for the future, a la the New York Giants, who have an aging #Eli's fault. You better be on the phone and say, hey, what is it going to take to get Josh Rosen? Like, honestly,
they claim they're still committed to Eli. Man,
I know, but if you're worth your salt, you better be asking if you can get Josh Rosen for a 3rd round pick. If you're the New York Giants. And you're not going to draft a quarterback, you better go out and get Josh Rosen for a 3rd round pick.
Yep.
Save yourself some money. So it's going to be interesting. Again, because of the pick they hold, I think that's the big one for me. And then what do you think locally as far as what does Zach Taylor have to do in this draft? Because there are a lot of holes. We already mentioned it. The Bengals made 0 offseason splashes.
The Bengals need help at linebacker, and there's a guy who a lot of people have in there towards the top of the draft that I actually don't have in my top 10 that would be if this guy's available at 11, Zach Taylor needs to sprint to the the podium to announce the pick himself. They need help on their offensive line because their offensive line is terrible.
Garbage.
You could use another pass rusher opposite Carlos Dunlap. You need help at linebacker. You may want to look at a cornerback because I don't know that Drake Kirkpatrick's $9 million salary is going to survive cuts.
Yeah.
That's
a lot of money for a guy who's marginal for sure.
You may want to look at a 3rd receiver as well because John Ross, it looks like he
refuses to go over the middle.
He doesn't get or when he does, he quits on the route.
Yeah.
You also need a tight end.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of pressure.
You gave $21 million to CJ Uzomah, and Tyler Eifert is never healthy.
No.
So he's got a lot of holes. He's got a lot of holes to figure out. And by the way, is Andy Dalton his guy?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
That's the other question,
and we're only going to do the top 10 here, but after we're done, we'll mention a little bit about what Cincinnati should do with the 11th pick and see what they're going to do. But, yeah, I just wanted to mention Zach Taylor because locally here, Mike Brown is still the owner. You change regimes, but Mike Brown is still your owner, and we know Mike Brown sometimes screws up drafts. You look at the 05 draft, one of the worst drafts in NFL history. The guys that came out of that draft were terrible. But all jokes aside, like Zach Taylor has a lot of holes to fill. It's not a joke. One of them sitting right here at the table. But there's a lot of pressure on him, and where's he going to take this franchise? And is Andy Dalton's era over? Because at 11, if they take a quarterback,
it seems
you're taking a quarterback to be your starter, and Andy Dalton's done.
With the way Andy Dalton's contract is set up, this is a prove-it year for him, one way or the other.
Because next year it's cheap. Get rid of him.
You can get rid of him next year, or if you draft a quarterback this year, go ahead and trade him. Because the way the NFL works nowadays, if you draft a quarterback in the 1st round, he's immediately your starter.
He has to be. You don't spend that much money on a 1st-round quarterback and let him sit the bench anymore.
All right. Speaking of 1st-rounders, biggest risk in the 1st round?
Kyler Murray. I think it has to be. Like I think that pick. We're assuming he's the number 1 overall pick. At least he's the number 1 quarterback overall. I think it's a huge risk. He's going to be the shortest quarterback drafted since Drew Brees. I don't think he's a Drew Brees level talent, and he's not a Russell Wilson level talent. I think he's below both of them with decision making. I think what saved him a lot in college was his ability to be the best athlete on the field. And in the NFL, you're not the best athlete. You're never the best athlete in the NFL. You're not. So he's going to be chasing. You look at some of these, even defensive line that are in this draft that run as fast of a 40 as he does. Like defensive linemen that run as fast as 40 as you do. Yep. And you're a 5'10", 201-pound guy. Like that's not a good theory. Nope. I think he has the tools to be successful. I think he should be playing baseball. But we've talked about that in the past too. He should be cutting checks with the A's, not cutting checks with an NFL franchise. But I just think there's so much risk involved, particularly if he's the number 1 overall pick with an undersized quarterback who apparently, based on his Wonderlic, is not a very intelligent person. The 20 on the Wonderlic is pretty concerning.
That's the lowest of all the quarterbacks.
Lowest
Again,
of the
those
quarterbacks.
scores, it's a reported score. Again, why they make those guys still take that test is confusing because it means nothing.
Well, it does to a point. Like you look at a guy like Vince Young, who was in the teens and turns out he's a terrible decision maker in the NFL. Like,
I mean, it doesn't. A lot of times it's an indicator, but it doesn't always play out that
it doesn't
way.
tell the whole story because Dan Marino got like a 10.
Ryan Fitzpatrick scored perfect on it. He's been with like 9 teams.
But he's
been
a
around.
genius.
Yes, he's been
still
around.
a genius.
No, I'm saying he's a smart guy, Harvard graduate and all.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily curtail
It's
long-term
not necessarily
NFL
a huge
success.
indicator. Dan Marino got like a 10, and Dan Marino is a Hall of Famer. So,
Right.
it's not a huge indicator. But the fact that you're the dumbest quarterback based on a single metric is a little concerning to me. But his size and just, I don't know that his skill set translates 100% into the NFL. And it's going to be interesting. I think that's, especially as a number 1 overall pick. Like we've seen in the past, number 1 overall picks that end up being terrible, and it can haunt your franchise for years. You look at a guy like Ryan Leaf, you look at a guy like Tim Couch, you look at Achilles Smith, like number 1 overall picks that just haunt your franchise for years.
I have 2 guys to keep an eye on as far as first-round risks. Likely, again, guys that are likely first-round picks that are risks, and it's really just mostly health reasons. Rashawn Gary, the defensive end from Michigan, it's just been found out within the last week or so that he has a bum shoulder and is probably going to need surgery after the season.
Yeah.
You combine that with the fact that Gary was the number 1 recruit coming out of high school into Michigan, and in 3 years in Michigan as a defensive end had 10 sacks.
Well, he was playing out of position a little bit. They used him inside a little more.
They
as opposed
did,
to an
but
edge
still,
rusher.
for everything, all the physical tools he has to only come through with 10 sacks in 3 years, it's a little in 34 games. It's a little concerning.
And I've also heard that a lot of people question his effort. Like he's kind of a low effort play when I want to guy.
Yeah,
which is a huge knock in the NFL. Like you can't play when you want to, especially as a rookie. You can't play when you want to.
No, because you'll get played right out of the league.
I think that was another one I considered. Again, just because of where Kyler Murray's projected, but Rashawn Gary, there's a lot of question marks surrounding him.
The other one is Montez Sweat, the defensive end from Mississippi State, because he has a heart condition. We saw this last year with Maurice Hurst, the defensive tackle from Michigan, who had a heart condition, first-round talent, but had a heart condition. The Raiders wound up getting him in the 5th round, and he wound up leading the team in sacks, so he turned out to be
Worked
okay.
out really well.
So watch out for Oakland to possibly look at him at number 27 in the first round because they have a history. They know how to handle this situation now.
They've done it before.
And they're able to get it there. So there you go. On the other side, guys to keep an eye out for, maybe under the radar guys, may not get picked tonight, maybe go tomorrow or on Saturday, and I'll give you mine right away. I have one. Adam has 2. The guy I'm going to look out for is Andy Isabella, wide receiver out of UMass. And you think, oh, UMass, well, they're an FCS team. Well, number 1, they're not an FCS team anymore. They're an FBS team.
Yeah,
they're a terrible FBS team,
not
but
good.
He led the FBS with almost 1,700 yards receiving, and I don't care what level you're at. That's no joke.
No.
MVP of the Senior Bowl. And if you think, oh, UMass, so who do they play? They don't play anybody big. Look on your screen now. Look what he did against Georgia. 15 catches, 219 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
And Georgia had a pretty decent defense.
Yeah, they're not too bad.
Not bad.
He's going to fall a little bit because of the level he played at. He's also only 5'10", $190, but he ran a 4.3 140 at the combine. Dude can fly.
Dude can play.
He is. You look at the guy. He is screaming to be a New England Patriot. I wouldn't be.
I got one too.
You wouldn't be shocked if the Patriots. The Patriots don't take him at 32
No,
if they don't trade
pass
out
on
him.
him.
Also, I think he'd also be an outstanding fit in Green Bay to replace Randall Cobb. Since Randall Cobb's gone to Dallas now,
I saw that.
they let him go. I think he would be an outstanding fit there. So Andy Isabella is a guy that I think can not only step in right away, he might be in the Pro Bowl after his rookie season.
Does he return kicks too?
I think he is that good. They could probably they could use him in the return game.
Yeah, you might.
No doubt. Adam, one of yours.
I got another one who you might look for the Patriots to pick up, and this one's a great story. I don't know who you put up first. Oh, you got David Montgomery first. All right. So this kid, and this is kind of fun for me because I coached at a high school. We played against him. He was a quarterback at Mount Healthy High School.
He's a Cincinnati.
He's a Cincinnati kid. He was a quarterback at Mount Healthy High School. This kid, he was like a dark horse Heisman candidate going into this season. You look at what he did. The kid can play. Like, he can run the rock. 1,200 yards, 13 TDs this last season. He's a big story. You look at his history. I don't know if you guys keep up with YouTube or whatever. There's a video floating around of him. Hyundai is doing some pretty cool little mini stories on rookies that are coming to the NFL.
He has a heck of a story.
He's got a heck of a story. You look at his family and his background, and the guy who moved around a lot as a kid, single mom, sporting 3 kids, got into some trouble, has a brother who's in prison right now. And really kind of made a decision to put his life on the straight and narrow, moved in with his best friend to kind of focus on what he was good at, which was football at the time, playing option quarterback, giving him an opportunity. He obviously went out to Iowa State, kind of removed himself from the situation here in Cincinnati. And it really kind of made his circle a really small, close-knit circle, and everybody in his circle has been on the same page as he is for the past couple of years. Doing more research on him. I know what a talent he is from watching him in high school, and you heard about him when he was at Iowa State. Obviously, they had a pretty good run these past couple of years with Matt Campbell there. You look at what he's going to do for you in the NFL. He's similar to a James Conner guy in Pittsburgh.
I think he's plug and play starter.
I think whoever drafts him is drafting him to be their starting running back.
Yep.
If you draft him, he's going to be your starting running back. And a lot of people have him projected as number 1 or number 2 running back overall. But you look at where it's projected that he's going to get picked, it's a 2nd or 3rd round projection because this draft is very defensive heavy. You look at most mock drafts, and it's 2/3 of the first round is defensive guys. And there are not a lot of running backs, not a lot of wide receivers projected even in the first round just because it is a defensive heavy draft. He's going to be a 2nd round pick, but whoever picks him is picking him to be their starting running back.
Well, I think also one of the other things people have concerns about is you see on the screen, he's averaged nearly 21 carries a game his last 2 years. Is he worn out?
But he's been healthy. Like that's
he's
not missing games, but he does have a lot of carries.
That's the question going into the league is maybe has he been worked a little too much in college? I think that works against him. No fault of his own. He has handled, as you said, he's remained healthy. Health has never been an issue with him, but I think that's the question people have. Sort of in the same vein as to what the NFL teams have as far as questions about Wisconsin running backs. Are they worn out by the time they get to the league? He's not quite to that level, but 21 carries per game
is a lot of carries.
It's a lot.
But they hitched their wagon to him, and he was a successful guy. And if you want a feel-good story, particularly, Cincinnati area with a local guy, that's a feel-good story for him to be successful. And again, watch that little 8-minute clip on him if you get a chance. It's a really good story, and it's hard not to pull for the kid. And then the second one we mentioned wide receivers in the New England Patriots. This kid, again, another kind of feel-good story and a kid who's going to be a later round draft pick. But you look at David Sills. This guy's a wide receiver out of West Virginia. But you look at his path to where he ended up. He was the number 1 quarterback in the nation as a 7th grader. All right. He was offered a scholarship by Pete Carroll as a 7th grader in high school to go to USC or in middle school, 7th grader in middle school. He was offered a USC scholarship. Ends up getting hurt at the end of his high school career. And the USC had obviously a change of regimes. They end up pulling a scholarship. He doesn't get a scholarship to go at USC. So he comes in as a wide receiver, goes to a junior college, tries to play quarterback. Nobody really wants him to play quarterback. Goes back to being a wide receiver. He goes to West Virginia, plays wide receiver for a season, thinks he still wants to play quarterback. So West Virginia lets him go back to junior college to play quarterback to see if he can get a quarterback scholarship. He can't find a quarterback scholarship. West Virginia says, come on back. We'll bring you back.
Look at the numbers.
Look at the numbers he put up the last 2 seasons. Now, this is what West Virginia does. They sling the football.
Yep.
But if you look at the touchdown totals, this guy has 33 touchdowns the last 2 seasons.
Look at the receptions, the yards. You can't get any more consistent.
You can't. He's just a possession receiver who has the ability to make big plays.
Well, he's also a big dude.
And he's a big body kid. He's a smart kid, obviously. He used to be a quarterback. And his path to the draft is probably more unique than anybody else, just with the hype leading up to his high school career and getting hurt. Junior college quarterback, wide receiver, junior college quarterback, back to wide receiver. Like, his path is just intriguing, and it's pretty cool. He's going to be a mid to late round selection. But, again, you're looking for a possession receiver. A place like New England, I think, is a perfect fit for a kid like this.
Well, and a guy who get down to the goal line, throw it up.
Yeah.
Because he's large.
He is. And it's just one of those things that, he's going to be a late round pick, but I think he's going to contribute to whatever roster he ends up on. He's going to be a receiver that's going to surprise a lot of people that didn't know about his story before. You're going to be like, hey, where'd this kid come from? He's got 700 yards and we're only 6 games into the season. Like, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this kid.
The biggest thing with him is the short intermediate routes to work on, and also the fact that he has not had a lot of time at receiver because he
really hasn't.
Can't made up his mind if he wants to be a quarterback, wants to be a receiver.
Long time, but
keep an eye on him. Likely, you're going to see his name called on Saturday.
Yeah, but his path to the draft is pretty interesting. And again, young at receiver. Like, he has not played a lot of receiver, so it's going to be very interesting to watch him going forward.
All right, so here we go. Now it's time to get into the most fun part of the show. Of course, the whole show's been fun. And make sure
we're always fun.
Yeah, we're always having fun. And if you want to get in on the fun, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell so that you're notified when we go live. You have subscribe. Follow us on the Facebook and on the Twitter and all of that. So now let's get into our Fumblegate mock top 10, and we will start the number 1 pick with the Arizona Cardinals. And let's go ahead and spoil the party here, folks. Here's the pick, and it's coming from both Adam and I. We do have some differences in our mock drafts. Each of us, this isn't one of them. Kyler Murray, believe, is going to be the pick overall. And I told you before we came in there, I almost, in my mock, had the Raiders pulling the trigger and going from 4-1 to take Kyler Murray, because you just think of the overall excitement of Kyler Murray and Antonio Brown heading to Vegas in 2 years.
Yeah, it would be fun. Like, if you're trying to build some excitement, which is what they did starting with the John Gruden hire. They're trying to build excitement as they move to Vegas. Now, At this point, who knows how soon they'll actually get there. Did they end up finding a stadium lease for this next season?
They're in Oakland for this next season. There's a discussion for 2020 to play there as well if it's not ready. So they think at the latest 2021's when they'll be in Vegas. But
it's some fun with when they're going to get there. I think this pick is what's going to predicate the rest of this first round, because if it is not Kyler Murray, the shape of my first round changes completely if they don't take Kyler Murray on
I wonder
number 1.
if Arizona shocks everyone and takes Nick Bosa number 1, if the 49ers don't look to trade out at number 2.
No, because I think
question.
And we're gonna, as we get through these, I think the three guys I have in my top 4 are going to be 3 of the top 4 picks. My question mark is actually Kyler Murray. Okay. Whether Kyler Murray is number 1, I think the next 3 of my picks are all 3 of the top 4. They could be the first 3 if Kyler Murray doesn't go first.
Okay,
overall.
so who does San Francisco then go with at number 2, assuming Kyler Murray goes number 1?
They got to go with Nick Bosa. I don't think that he's the best defensive end in this draft. I think that statistically he looks like the best defensive end. I don't think he's going to have the best career. Now, I probably would have said the same thing when it came to his brother, and his brother's been really, really successful. So I think that this has to be the pick at number 2. If Kyler Murray goes number 1 overall, I think this has to be your pick. But I don't know if he's going to be the most successful. I don't think it's a bad pick. It's going to be interesting with the injury concern, although he's had a lot of time off. He's supposedly 100% healthy. But I don't know that he's going to be the best long-term pick here at number 2, but I think this is who San Francisco picks.
Okay, so, and I'm with you again, and there will be some differences as we go along. Those first 2 picks are the same in both of our mock drafts. So is number 3. Quinnen Williams will be a New York Jet, at least as far as what we have. You see the numbers on the screen, 8 sacks this year. He won the Outland Trophy, was just an absolute freak. As a defensive tackle, he was unblockable.
Yeah, well, and you look at what he did the combine. Like for his size, I think he weighed in at 318 pounds. Went out and ran a sub 4.8 40 at 318 pounds. Just insane. Like, athletically, this kid is off the charts. He's the pick at number 3. Again, all this is predicated on what happens number 1, but he's the pick at number 3, and I think the Jets get a hell of a steal as a defensive tackle at number 3.
Okay, so number 4 now, the Oakland Raiders now on the clock, and I won't be surprised, number 1, if they try move up to number 1. I won't be surprised here if they look at quarterback as well. So with that, Do they look at quarterback here, number 4, Adam Kieft?
If this guy's on the board, and I think he will be, I think John Gruden should be running to the podium. You look at, they gave away the best defensive player in the NFL last year. I think this is the best defensive player in the draft this year. It's Josh Allen from University of Kentucky. I think, and I know you're excited about this one.
Yeah.
And you should be. I think this is the best prospect out of Kentucky in a long time. I think he is the most can't miss prospect. I think you look at his work ethic. He came back for his senior year. He added 15 pounds of muscle. And by the way, came out and had 17 sacks, got the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. The kid can play.
Oh, he also won the Ronnie Lott Award, the Chuck McNark Award. There was just not enough room on the graphic. He won almost every defensive player of the award you could win. Yeah,
he's got a nice full trophy case now. I think he's the biggest can't miss prospect. You look at his size and his length, his wingspan, I think is almost 7 feet long. Like the kid I think is, again, the most can't miss prospect. His work ethic apparently is bar none. Had a great combine. He put up better numbers than Joey Bosa at the combine. Again, they had him working as an edge rusher, as an outside linebacker, as opposed to a defensive end. But the numbers he put up at the combine were phenomenal.
Well, the thing is with Allen too, is you watch Kentucky. Yes, he is brilliant at coming off the edge and getting after the quarterback. 17 sacks, obviously, especially in the SEC. No joke. He can get out and cover too. Yeah. Whereas Nick Bosa is a pure defensive end, hand in the dirt, going to go get the quarterback, and he's terrific at that. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, but Allen gives you a little more versatility there.
And he's going to drop into coverage. He's going to play the flats. He's going to get interceptions on the edge and stuff. But it's going to be, again, I think he's the biggest can't miss prospect just based on everything I've heard about him.
I think here, this is our first difference here. I think they're going to go a little different and going to go a little bit more sizzle as far as the long term goes, and I think the Raiders go with Ed Oliver here at this spot. You can't go wrong with either guy, I don't think. Now, Oliver had a little bit of an injury bug his last year at Houston, but you take a look at the guy, a 3-time All-American. He was an All-American all 3 years. He won the Outland Trophy 2 years ago before Quinnen Williams won it this year. I think he's another guy you can plug in, and he can be a star in your defense right away. Plug in the middle. He's going to command 2 blocks. He's similar to Aaron Donald in that he can get off his blocks at will and like that. And so I think Ed Oliver would be the pick there for the Oakland Raiders. Again, wouldn't be shocked if it's Josh Allen to get that Khalil Mack replacement until John Gruden inevitably pisses Josh Allen off in a couple of years.
Trades him away with 1 year left on his rookie deal, and then he goes out and gets a big money contract.
Correct. And he wants out there. So Josh Allen, Adam has him going to Oakland. I have Ed Oliver going to the Raiders at number 4. The number 5 pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mr. Kieft.
I got Devin White from LSU, linebacker. I think they need linebacker help. It's going to be interesting to see what Bruce Arians does down there in Tampa Bay. They're apparently going to hitch their wagon to Punchface offensively. But, I think this is the best middle linebacker in the draft. I think they got to go out and get Devin White, especially at this point in the draft. We both have 2 of the elite defensive linemen, or three of the elite defensive linemen off the board. I think you go middle linebacker here. And then they're going to have to start worrying about surrounding Punchface with some offensive weapons. But because we know Bruce Arians is an offensive guy, but I think here you got to go defense.
You have Mike Evans, but you let Deshaun Jackson go back to Philly, and then Ronald Jones was an absolute bust last year as a second-round running back pick. So, I think there. But Devin White, tremendous player. Speed for days, which you need as a linebacker nowadays.
Yeah, I think he ran like a 4.58 40 or
something
stupid for a guy who weighs 250 pounds.
Okay, so the 5th pick here, Adam has the Tampa Bay selecting Devin White. I'm going to throw things into a little bit of a tizzy here at the number 5 pick.
Yeah,
we're going to have a trade in my top 10, and the reports are that Tampa Bay, if it's not Devin White, may look to indeed move out of this spot and accumulate some more picks to get some more talent around Punchface,
which is what they need. And Bruce Arians,
not a bad idea.
Bruce Arians drafts pretty well.
He knows what he's doing.
He's drafted really well.
The reports are that Dwayne Haskins has been desired by one of the most aggressive owners in the NFL, Daniel Snyder.
Yeah, Daniel Snyder
of the Washington Redskins.
If he wants something, he's going to go out and go get it.
Yeah. So I think here you're going to see the trade happen, you're going to see the Washington Redskins come up from 15 all the way up to number 5. Yes, they're going to have to give up the number 1 pick.
They're going to give up a bevy to do it.
They're going to have to give up the number 1 pick next year to do it, and probably maybe a second rounder or swap second and thirds. They figure all that stuff out. But I think this is the first big move of the draft here. The Redskins go up to number 5 ahead of the New York Giants,
who need a quarterback.
May not get it. May not take one at 6. They may wait till pick 17 to do it.
They got 2 in the first round.
I think this is the pick because you don't know if Alex Smith's ever going to play football again.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And your other guys are Colt McCoy, Case Keenum, and Josh Johnson.
Yeah.
And I'm not even counting Sanchez.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they got a bunch of quarterbacks on their roster, but none of them look like starters. So
that's correct.
It's a valid trade. I think it's something that they seriously have to consider because obviously, like you mentioned, Alex Smith with the horrific injury that he had last year, almost lost his leg by some reports. It wouldn't surprise me. And then again, so much of this is predicated off what happens at pick 1. Because if Kyler Murray doesn't go number 1 overall, everything else changes.
The productivity of Dwayne Haskins. Look at these numbers.
Yeah, his numbers are stupid.
These numbers are obscene.
Anytime that you are the all-time leader in the Big Ten in any statistical quarterback or category, which the Big Ten is, I believe it's the oldest league in college football, is it not? It's been around a long time. And anytime you can say you are the all-time leader in anything, and he's the all-time leader in a few quarterback position stats, it's impressive. And I'm not sold on the guy, but I understand why franchises are. I think.
Well, and what do we see what position is always overvalued most?
Quarterbacks, 100%. Quarterbacks are always take risks on quarterbacks, quote unquote risks. But that's one that you could see.
So 1 through 5. Here's a recap. Here is my top 5: Kyler Murray, Nick Bosa, Quinnen Williams. 1, 2, 3. Ed Oliver going at 4 to the Oakland Raiders, and then the trade. Washington moves up to 5 from 15 in front of the Giants to take Dwayne Haskins out of Ohio State. Here is Adam's top 5 thus far, and we're going to get to 6 through 10 here in just a moment.
We agree on the top 3, and then we start to differ a little bit. We both got defensive linemen going to the Raiders, but the trade, and again, a lot of it's going to predicate on what happens at number 1. But
that's right.
This draft could get very interesting very quickly.
Absolutely. So now let's move on to the second half of the top 10. Adam, you're up. What are the Giants looking to do here at number 6?
I think the Giants finally make a educated decision, realize that #Eli's fault is no longer their franchise quarterback. I think they go out and get a guy who I think is in some ways similar to Eli Manning. I think they're both intelligent quarterbacks. Obviously getting an education at Duke, I think Daniel Jones is an intelligent quarterback. I think this is where they go. I think they go out and get a quarterback at number 6. Now, again, they do have the 17th pick as well, so maybe they pass on him here, but for the sake of interest, with Kyler Murray going number 1, and there's teams behind them, I don't have any trades in my top 10, there's teams behind them that can take quarterbacks. I think they go and get their quarterback at 6 rather than waiting till 17 because the guy they want may not be there at 17.
It's very possible. And Jones is a guy that continually seems to climb up the boards. Drew Lock is a guy that's up there. I think Drew Lock would be the more surprising pick if he goes in the top 10, although that's been rumored. I think Jones is definitely an option there as well.
But you got your guy still on the board. Is this where he finally goes?
Josh Allen comes off the board here because the Giants. I think here the Giants seemingly have put out the idea that they're not going quarterback at 6. May look at it 17, and when you have a guy like Josh Allen,
if he's still there at 6, you have to go get him.
He's too good to pass up at that point.
If he's there at 6, you have to go get him. He's an instant upgrade to your edge on the defense. I don't think he is there, but if he's there, you have to go get him. If
he's there, yes. It becomes best player available because the Giants are another team like Arizona that has a ton of holes.
They got a ton of holes
that they need to fill, especially on the defensive side now that Landon Collins has been bought off by Washington. So I have Josh Allen there. For no other reason than he is clearly the best available.
If he's there at 6, then he has to be the guy at 6. Has to be.
All right, number 7 now, the Jacksonville Jaguars. We talked about them earlier. What do they do? Do they upgrade their defense? They look to give Big Dick Nick some more protection here, and we're in agreement on this one. They're going to give Nick some protection.
You got to give Nick some protection, and the Colts did this last year with their franchise quarterback. They protected Andrew Luck. They made themselves into a playoff team, all by going out and protecting the quarterback. You just signed a franchise quarterback. You got Big Dick Nick. You're giving him 88 up to $102 million. You got to protect him. You got to go with Jawan Taylor here, the offensive tackle from Florida. Got to go out and get him. You got to protect the quarterback. Give him some time. Again, a run blocker too, but this guy is a very, very good pass protector. Give your quarterback some time to make plays. We know Nick Foles is not very mobile, but he's a good pocket passer, and if you give him some time, he's going to make plays for you.
And you see on the screen there, only gave up 1 sack all year long this year, and it was to Josh Allen.
Yeah, and Josh Allen, it turns out that kid's not so bad.
Yeah,
so
he's
turned
not
out all right.
So we're unanimous there. Jawan Taylor just moves from Gainesville to Jacksonville.
Yeah,
to
easy
begin his
move
professional.
too. He just throws everything in a U-Haul. He doesn't have to fly or anything.
That's right. Number 8, the Detroit Lions here. I have them getting a new anchor for their defense. Matt Patricia needs a guy in the middle of the line.
Yep.
They really haven't had Haloti Ngata kind of filled that gap after Ndamukong Suh left, but not to the degree that I think Christian Wilkins is going to fill that one. He was the heart and soul of this Clemson defense, which was destructive over the last couple of years. And, oh, by the way, they just landed a commit from the number 1 recruit in the 2020 class, who's a defensive lineman.
Yeah.
He's like their 11th 5-star commit.
Their defensive line has been phenomenal, and we talked about this during the playoff time. Their five defensive linemen are going to get drafted on their defense. They're probably all going to be within the first 3 rounds. Their defensive line was really good. I don't disagree with this pick at all. I'm interior lineman as well, though. I got Rashawn Gary.
Staying at home.
I had 2 stay-at-home picks. Again, pack up your stuff, take it from Ann Arbor, and you go over to Detroit. I think that it's, again, there's a lot of question marks that surround Rashawn Gary. He was a little bit out of position there at Michigan. I think that in the NFL, he's going to get into his more true position, which I think is off the edge. You look at his 40, 4.58, have that guy at that size coming off the edge. I think he's going to be a force. If he goes later because of the question marks around him, it wouldn't surprise me. I think that this makes sense that he went into Detroit for a personal visit. I think it's an easy pick for them because they obviously have the most eyes on him because he's the closest to him.
Sure.
So I think it's an easy pick for them there. I agree. No matter what, I think they go D-line here. I think they have to get some force on their defensive line. But I got Rashawn Gary just taking the road down.
Let me move to the Buffalo Bills at the 9th pick, and I think this is a team that has the if you want to call it a luxury, to just go best player available.
Yeah.
At this point, do you try and make some moves defensively? Do you try and get Josh Allen, the quarterback, some help on offense? And I think that's where they're going to go. I think you're going to see T.J. Hawkinson come off the board here, the tight end from Iowa, first team All Big Ten, the Mackey Award winner, obviously. But to give Josh Allen a weapon, because right now, the Buffalo Bills' number 1 tight end is.
Couldn't tell you.
Tyler Kroft.
Oh, jeez.
The former Cincinnati Bengal
with the long hair flow. He's got the flow. He does have the flow, which I appreciate.
He's got a heck of a salad, which you can relate to because you're still hanging on to yours.
I love the flow.
Yeah, but I give Allen an outlet down the middle. Hawkinson is remarkable. Can catch the ball. He's got speed. He can jump over guys. He can also block for you, which you need a tight end to do that. Because
at Iowa, they ran the ball at Iowa. He definitely can put his shoulder into somebody.
Because it gets really, really damn cold up in Buffalo.
Yeah.
You need an extra lineman there to be able to help out, and then Hawkinson can do that. So I think T.J. Hawkinson, a guy. There's a lot of different ways. I could see Buffalo possibly trading out of this pick. If somebody like
some holes to fill,
Miami wants to come up and get a quarterback.
Yep.
If Washington doesn't make the move up to number 5, maybe they can get up to 9 to get a quarterback.
Yep.
That's I think it's a candidate Buffalo is possibly trade out.
Yeah, Buffalo is and again, depending on when quarterbacks start, Buffalo is definitely in an enviable position because they are going to have the ability to bump back behind the next couple teams in the draft because. You look at Denver, you look at Cincinnati, you look at Miami. There's teams behind them. Washington, obviously, like you mentioned, trading up. There's teams behind them that need quarterbacks, so they're going to be in a good spot if somebody wants to jump up to get a quarterback to trade back. I also am on the helping Allen train, but I got him getting an offensive lineman here. I got Andre Dillard, the offensive tackle from Washington State. I think they, again, kind of the philosophy that we saw with Indianapolis. I think protecting your quarterback is the way to go. Give the kid some time. I've read a lot of people feel like this guy's the most athletic tackle in the draft. Maybe not the most dominant, but he's the most athletic. He's going to move for you. He's going to make some time for your quarterback back under center. 4-year starter, all Pac-12. He's long. He's a tall dude. Like the guy's going to make your offensive line instantly better. I think they protect their quarterback here rather than giving him a weapon. But again, if they trade out here, it wouldn't surprise me because they are at a very enviable position as far as being able to get some value for that pick, and they won't have to move back very many spots. Because they have so many holes to fill, like there's going to be a tight end there available. If they trade back to even to number 15, 16, 17, there's going to be a tight end there available. Mm-hmm. There's going to be offensive linemen there available. I think that the luxury of not needing a quarterback and this being a primarily defensive-heavy draft and they need more offensive weapons is going to bode well for them because they can trade back and still get an offensive guy because you look at the other picks around them are probably either quarterbacks or defense. So they're definitely in a good spot.
Okay, so to round out our top 10, and we'll have a full recap here in just a few moments of how we each see the top 10 going here. The Denver Broncos now on the clock, and I will simply ask you this, Adam. How does John Elway screw this up?
John Elway screws this up. They go out and get Joe Flacco, and then they go out and pick a quarterback. This is how I think they screwed up because John Elway, as we've seen since Peyton Manning, cannot find a guy to put under center.
Hey, Joe Flacco's entering his prime at 34 years old.
He's entering his prime, and he's entering his prime so much they're going to go out and draft a quarterback anyway. I think this is where Dwayne Haskins comes off the board. I know you got him a lot earlier. I think Dwayne Haskins, again, the productivity, you look at his numbers, the Big Ten leader in multiple statistical categories. And, by the way, Denver knows teams behind them. Cincinnati Bengals have been rumored to be looking at Dwayne Haskins. We have Miami Dolphins who are looking for a quarterback. The Redskins, if they don't trade up, looking for a quarterback. New York Giants possibly for a quarterback there at number 17 if they don't take Jones like I have predicted early. I think Denver finds a way to screw it up and they go out and get a quarterback. Now there's again a lot of holes to fill, and you did sign a guy hashtag not elite Joe Flacco, but I think they go out and get their quarterback here. And then they have a roster decision with is Joe Flacco worth keeping around or you cut him loose after you give him a contract. Like it's going to be interesting to see. And again, quarterbacks are going to be predicated a lot on what happens at number 1 overall.
Yeah. Well, they're not going to cut Joe Flacco loose, I wouldn't
think.
No,
but
that would
you
be
know
John
what I mean?
Elway.
Like, if you have a quarterback at number 10 and a guy who you just went out and got, it's going to be very interesting to see how that dynamic plays out.
Yeah, because that would be John Elway immediately admitting failure. Of course, John Elway never does anything
not
wrong.
Immediately. He usually waits a year before he admits that he screwed
ask
it up.
him. Okay, so I think they should look at quarterback here at 10, and I think that's the reason why they're going to screw this up and not look at a quarterback. Because I'm of the belief that Elway will not even consider a quarterback until at least the 3rd round.
Yeah, well,
he should earlier. Granted, he booted it once when he thought Paxton Lynch was a first-round pick, and we saw how that turned out. Paxton Lynch.
He still has a job somewhere, right? I think he's still got a job. He's employed by somebody.
Well, in the business world, sure. I don't know about football.
Was he playing the AAFL or did he get cut from that too?
No, well, everybody got cut from that. The AAF.
AAF.
Hey, call it Vince McMahon. Maybe he can help you out next year.
XFL's coming.
All right. So yeah, right. So I'll have here Denver give Joe Flacco a weapon. It's not a receiver because we can't give Joe Flacco receivers. Granted, he has Emmanuel Sanders, who's getting older. No longer has Demaryius Thomas, who's, by the way, in New England. Nice sneaky signing there, Patriots.
Hey, but they got a nice wide receivers coach out there. My boy Zach Azzani is wide receivers coach there in Denver. He's a former Chippewa.
Who's he have to work with?
He's got a bunch of guys.
Okay.
I don't know, RDA. Hashtag RDA. Shout out Zach Azzani.
Well, in my mock draft, we're going to have back-to-back Hawkeyes coming off the board. Noah Fant, the other tight end. At Iowa. You look at the numbers here, only 18 career touchdown receptions because he had another stud in T.J. Hawkinson as the other tight end to throw it to. But look at this also. The tight end running a 4.5 40. And you imagine
that's better than receivers.
You imagine that going down the seam. And even in Denver, it is possible that Joe Flacco may throw the ball more than 6.7 yards down the field.
Yeah, he might actually spread the field a little bit.
The air is thinner. He may get up to 7 yards an attempt there, folks. Watch out. So I have Noah Fant. I have back-to-back Hawkeyes coming off the board. In my it's weird. Back not only from the same school, but the same position.
Same position, and it's going to happen. Both of those guys are probably going to be first-round draft picks at the same position from the same school.
Right.
And it's crazy what Kirk Ferentz did there in Iowa, like with 2 tight ends who are going to be top 15, top 20 level talent.
And he's got an agent good enough to say, hey, we just beat an FCS team. Give me another $20 million contract extension.
Kirk Ferentz, he's going to be there until he dies.
Okay, so
he'll die on that field one day.
That completes our mock top 10. Here you go. Here's a look at it. Here is Adam Kieft's mock top 10, as we talked about. Here is Adam's top 5. And no big surprises there. I don't think not as many people have Josh Allen being an Oakland Raider. He'd be a great fit there, obviously, until, as I said, John Gruden pisses him off in 3 years.
And the Raiders find ways to screw stuff up all the time. But I think 3 of my top 4, I think Bosa, Quinnen Williams, and Josh Allen have to be in the top 4. It just based on their talent level. I think that those have to be 3 of the top 4 picks.
Can't argue it. And here is 6 through 10 from Adam Kieft. He has the Giants actually doing it at 6.
Decision. Doing a smart business decision.
The thing they should do. And then, as you said, you have John Elway screwing it up by trading for Joe Flacco and then going ahead and drafting a quarterback.
But it's so much of this draft is predicated on the number 1 pick. It's going to be really interesting. And Jason will run through his top 10 real quick, and then I want to ask a quick question about number 11 after we're done here.
Sure, here. So here's my top 5. The big thing there was, for me, was Washington trading up from 15 to 5 right in front of the Giants to get Dwayne Haskins. And again, if you're afraid he's going to go to your division rival, you're probably going to pay more. So kudos to Tampa if they pull this trade off. And then 6 through 10, Josh Allen to the Giants at 6, because I really don't believe the Giants are going to look at the 6th pick for the quarterback. They should. They wholeheartedly should. But I think they are so damn committed to Eli Manning, they're going to wait until the middle of the first round and possibly let their next franchise guy go. Who knows if that happens? I also wouldn't be shocked the Giants don't draft a quarterback tonight.
They probably won't.
At all.
They probably won't. They've committed to Eli Manning, so they probably won't draft one tonight.
And then again, you see at the bottom of your screen, bottom there, 9 and 10. Not a typo, folks. Both tight ends from Iowa go 9 and 10.
Yeah, Hawkinson and Fant. And that could very well happen. Again, I think both of our scenarios could very well happen
And then
tonight.
Also, I think both what we touched on a moment ago, don't be surprised if either Buffalo and or Denver trades out and trades back in the first round.
And again, depending on this is where this draft gets interesting, because quarterbacks are going to be at a premium, even though they maybe not necessarily should be.
Right.
They're going to be at a premium, and what happens at number 1 is going to predicate the rest of this first round a lot, because if Kyler Murray goes number 1 overall, quarterbacks become that much higher of a priority. If he doesn't go number 1 overall, then it will be interesting to see when he does go and then where the rest of the fallout is. Again, this is a very defensive-heavy draft. Save quarterbacks.
This is one of the more defensive-heavy drafts I can recall.
Very, very defense. A lot of linebacker talent, a lot of defensive line talent in this draft is unbelievable. So
you had a comment or a question about number 11.
I think so. Where you sit with 11 now? You didn't have Devin White come off of your board on your top 10.
If he's there at 11,
middle linebacker.
If he is there at 11, you're sprinting to the podium.
100%. I agree. If Devin White is still on the board, I think if for some reason a guy like Josh Allen is still on the board at 11, you sprint to the podium and get Josh Allen, even though you might necessarily need him. I think you go out and get him because it just makes your D-line that much scarier. But do you think at 11, do Cincinnati Bengals look at quarterback at 11?
I think they will look at quarterback. Because obviously
is Zach Taylor decided on the, because a lot of mock drafts have Dwayne Haskins at 11. Again, short road trip coming down from Columbus.
Taylor obviously has no allegiance to Andy Dalton in the same way that Cliff Kingsbury has no allegiance to Josh Rosen, 100%. Which is why that's being debated there. It's not going to shock me if the Cincinnati Bengals select, if Dwayne Haskins is there at 11, which according to us, your experts here, that's not going to happen.
I don't think he is. But
the Bengals number 2, the Bengals will not trade up to get somebody like Haskins.
No, the Bengals won't go up. The Bengals will. They probably won't go down either. The Bengals will probably sit at 11.
As we've seen with Mike Brown, he won't
move around.
If Haskins is there at 11, and Zach Taylor pulls the trigger and selects him, do they immediately look to shop Andy Dalton?
Yes. I think you shop him to try and get back into the first round.
You think somebody would give up? You think somebody would give up a
No. I
Andy
think
Dalton?
you start to put together a package.
Okay.
Where, with Andy Dalton in it and try and get back, because the way they've structured the draft now is they've spaced it out so much. When I got drafted, it was 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. That was it. Now they've spaced the draft out so much where it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like there's a lot more time for decision making. Mm-hmm. So I think if quarterback is your move, I think you start to shop Andy Dalton immediately, because there's and if that's their move, they may be shopping him already. They may already be putting feelers out there that say, hey, looking at teams that are farther down in the draft, saying, hey, we're looking at quarterback at 11.
What about Washington?
What about
Jay Gruden?
What about Washington? What about New York? Again, I mentioned with Kyler, if Kyler Murray goes number 1 overall, New York better be on the phone looking for teams who are trading away quarterbacks who are in a better spot.
I don't think the Giants would look at Dalton, because I think he's a little older.
He's older too.
He's older than what they would want to go with.
There's teams out there that need quarterbacks that don't necessarily need them as a pressing issue where they need them in a first-round pick. But Andy Dalton on your roster doesn't hurt you.
No.
If you're the New York Giants, it doesn't hurt you. If you're the Denver, if you're the Denver Broncos, it doesn't hurt you.
It kind of gets me, and of course, again, we live in the Cincinnati area, so we get a lot of Bengals coverage.
We see more here than most.
It's interesting to me how quickly, because there's a new head coach, people are willing to just discard Andy Dalton.
I don't think they should discard Andy Dalton, because when you put weapons around him, he's shown he's been a very good quarterback.
When he's had guys to block in front of him.
Yeah, when he has an offensive line to protect him.
Andrew Whitworth.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Getting rid of Andrew Whitworth, then you get rid of your offensive line coach, Paul Alexander. Way to go, Mike Brown.
Way to go, Mikey. When he has guys around him, and especially when he has a line to block in front of him, we saw what happened in 2015 when they started 8-0. And you could have made the case that team was set up for a deep playoff run if he doesn't bust his thumb in the final month of the regular season against Pittsburgh.
Put in A.J. McCarron, who didn't do bad, by the way.
He was fine.
He did okay.
But Andy Dalton was, for a while that year, was in the MVP discussion.
Yeah,
because he was playing so well.
He was playing really well.
So that's the thing I don't understand, is why we're so quickly to dismiss a guy who has proven he can produce. Is he among the top 5 quarterbacks in the league? Absolutely not.
No.
I don't want to confuse people with that, but he is more than serviceable.
He's a proven starting quarterback in the NFL.
Proven.
Is he a difference-making quarterback? No.
No.
But he is a consistent player when you protect him and put weapons around him. He is a very consistent NFL quarterback. He doesn't make terrible decisions, but if you don't give him time, it doesn't matter. Like, your decisions are forced when you have less time to make them. If you give him a pocket, he's going to make a good throw. Mm-hmm. Like we saw, like you mentioned, 2015, when you have the weapons around him, you have Tyler Eifert, AJ Green, and all those guys that you had around him at the time. He made good decisions. They started out 8-0, and before he broke his thumb, he was an MVP consideration. I think a lot of people are quick to write him off. Now, I don't think he's elite by any means, but a lot of people, again, have a quarterback projected at number 11, because a lot of people have Dwayne Haskins on the board at 11. A lot of people have Dwayne Haskins coming down 71 from Columbus to Cincinnati and starting over with Zach Taylor. I think people are jumping the shark a little bit with getting rid of Andy Dalton. It wouldn't surprise me if they do. But similar to the situation with Cincinnati fans and what happened with Mike Brown and Marvin, I fear that you won't know what you got till it's gone. And I'm not saying that you should have kept Marvin around, but you look at Marvin's success as a Cincinnati Bengals head coach, and it was phenomenally better than everybody else who came before.
He's the best head coach in franchise history.
And you look at Andy Dalton, and if you go with a guy like Dwayne Haskins or any other quarterback there at 11, and they struggle or digress as an offense because there's not weapons around that quarterback either, or you're not protecting that quarterback either, are you not? Do Cincinnati fans realize like what they had with Dalton? You know what I mean?
Well, Cincinnati fans are going to do what Cincinnati fans do, and they just won't show up.
They won't show up, which is what they do anyway.
And the other thing it's interesting is, and I think a lot of people think is Taylor has the power to decide if he wants to move from Andy Dalton, simply because if you go back to the Zach Taylor hire, he was not a Mike Brown hire.
Yeah,
that was Katie. That was Troy. That was Duke Tobin, who convinced Mike Brown to bring him on because the reports were Mike Brown wanted Hugh Jackson to be the head coach. And so They were able to convince him to go a different route.
Yeah.
And so I think because of that, people are thinking that Taylor has autonomous power throughout the organization, and if he wants to go with another quarterback, he can. And we've seen Mike Brown throughout the years, R.E. Marvin Lewis, loyal beyond the point where it is a successful marriage.
Yeah.
How many times have we said after each of the last 5-6 years, Marvin Lewis needs to go. Marvin Lewis needs to go, and he didn't because Mike Brown is a fiercely loyal guy. You know that from being being in that organization.
He kept my ass around for 3 years, and I didn't do anything for him. I didn't play a single game for him, and I got 3 years out of the deal. So you
got pension.
I mean, I will give Mike Brown credit. To a fault, he is loyal to his guys, and if Andy Dalton is his guy, then maybe Zach Taylor doesn't even have a say. Because we know what Mike Brown does in the draft. He goes out and drafts who he feels is the best guy for him being Mike Brown.
And that's the thing people have a problem with, is that he is still the one.
He's still pulling the trigger.
As opposed to Duke Tobin.
And that's why this 11, they don't move from 11. Mike Brown doesn't trade picks. Mike Brown picks at where his pick is, and that's what he does. You could come to Mike Brown with first-round picks for the next 2 years, and he probably still won't trade out of 11 because that's what he does. We've seen it in the past, and we mentioned it in our chat the other day with the Achilles Smith pick, where he was offered a bevy of picks for that spot where they picked Achilles.
The Saints had offered – this is 20 years ago when the Saints traded their entire draft to get Ricky Williams. They reportedly offered the Bengals their entire draft plus the first-rounder and a third-rounder in the year 2000, and Mike Brown said no. I want your entire draft and your first-round picks for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
And Mike Ditka told him to piss off.
Yeah.
As he should have.
But again, Mike Brown does what Mike Brown does. He's not going to move.
Somebody's going to have to offer him at least a first and maybe a third next year for him to move back.
Yeah. It'll be 1, 1, and 3.
And when I'm talking moving back, I'm talking moving from say Miami wants to come up from 13 to 11.
Yeah.
2 spots.
Yeah. No, he probably should command a ransom for it, but even if people offer a ransom, a la the Saints when they came up to get Ricky Williams, Mike Brown famously turned them down.
Tim, they're not bringing Marvin back. Sorry, my brother, bring Marvin back. Tim, no, just no.
Is he not a consultant? I thought they gave him a consultant job. Isn't he like a consultant still?
He was an analyst for the Alliance of American Football.
But I thought he was still doing consulting for the
Bengals.
He's probably got a permanent office. He's probably got a door that, Marvin Lewis
is Mikey legally adopted him yet?
I don't know, but yeah, nothing against Marvin. I respect Marvin as a coach and I respect him as a person. He's a very nice human. Again, it kept me around for 3 years.
But it was clear his time had come.
It was time to move on, and Mike Brown does things that only Mike Brown can do, like questioning, bringing in Hugh J. But yeah, again, this whole draft, and I mentioned this to Jason before we went on the air. This whole draft is one of the more confusing drafts in the last 3 years. This is our third year doing the draft preview.
I think it's just because it's so defensive heavy.
It's so defensive heavy, and the quarterback situation is what just turns it so much because Arizona has been rumored to take Kyler Murray number 1 overall for so long, despite the fact they're drafting a quarterback number 10 overall last year. It all
goes back to what Cliff Kingsbury said when he was coaching against him in college.
That he would take him. If I had the number 1 pick, I would take him.
And he said that in October when they were playing them.
Yeah.
And people have locked into that as almost as if it's like an ironclad contract.
Yeah. It's going to be, again, it's going to be fun from the start. This is one of the more interesting first days of the draft that I've seen. Obviously our last 3 years of doing this, but just overall, it's going to be interesting to how it shakes out. There's a ton of defensive talent, and quarterbacks are going to get sprinkled in there. But the fact that we may not have a receiver off the board until the 20s, we may not have a running back at all in the first round today. It's going to be very interesting to see how this first round shakes out, and we'll be back tomorrow to talk about it. It's gonna be a lot of fun to see how everything happens tonight, and again talk about it tomorrow, and get your guys' input on what you think of the first round, and what holes teams are still going to have to fill after day one.
So here we go once again. Here is my mock top 5. Murray, Bosa, Williams, Ed Oliver to the Raiders, and Dwayne Haskins via trade goes to the Washington Redskins at 5. Here is the second half of my top 10. Screenshot this, and just keep it in mind because one or both of us is going to be right on every pick. We already know that.
Yeah, we're always right.
I mean, we know what we're doing here.
If you're betting money, you go with us.
Here's 6 through 10 of mine, and now let's move on to Adam's top 5 here. He has no trades here. You went with the trade last year.
I
got
did go with
it
the trade
right.
last year, and I was right. Wrong player, but right trade.
Yeah, right trade. So hopefully I can follow
I just don't see one. I don't see one this year because everything that's available is laid out for everybody.
The only one I could see besides the one I have in my mock is the Raiders going from 4-1 just because they're the freaking Raiders.
Yeah, I could see somebody coming up to get Denver's pick at 10. Like they got Joe Flacco, and if Cincinnati's truly wanting a quarterback and somebody comes up from mid-teens to come up to Denver to get their pick at 10 to get the quarterback they want instead of the Bengals getting whoever they want. Again, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a fun draft to look at, especially after it's all said and done. And again, then you play the speculation game of who's going to be the best out of this class and where we sit 3 years from now with all these guys that get drafted tonight. But either way, 32 guys getting their lives changed tonight. We got 32 instant millionaires coming in tonight. So it's going to be a lot of fun. You guys tune into the draft. Come back tomorrow. We'll talk about it together. You guys can, tell us we were wrong or right, probably right. But yeah, it'll be fun. So you guys tune in tonight, take a look at it, and then, give us your input. You hit us up on Facebook, on the Twitter, whatever. Give us some responses of what you think of good picks, bad picks, surprise picks, trades, whatever. Just let us know.
And, anything else I have to say? We appreciate you watching here on YouTube. Give us a subscribe. Hit the little bell notification. That way, when we go live tomorrow, you're instantly notified.
Comes right to your phone. It went right to my phone as we were talking. It said, "Hey, we're live." Well, I knew we were live, but now I know on my phone too.
We thank everyone watching, and we will see you tomorrow morning here on Fumblegate on YouTube to wrap up the first round and look ahead to the weekend. Should be a lot of fun, folks. We thank you so much for joining us here in our 2019 NFL Draft Preview Show. We're back tomorrow to recap Round 1. Same time, same YouTube channel, right here on Fumblegate.